We heard from the minister of DRC. What's wrong with your country? Well, we don't even start by saying the King of Belgium created a slave colony for 30 years.
True.
The government of Belgium ran the slave colony for another 40 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, how you guys doing? It's your boy Mr. J, aka Kwame Boy, a bong boy, a dekunle, a dewale, a dokunwoke, Creole boy, Bazinga, Manotashi, what you do, you dig gang, what you do, more like, hey. We're going to talk about something today, man. I know that a couple of you asked me to check it out, and I took a look a couple of days, but we're going to talk about that today. Man, this is a no musical reaction, man. I'm going to be reacting to one of the top economists from the US, man. He gave us a blueprint of what has been happening, the relationship between the West and Africa. You dig? Before we get started, if you're not done it, pause for a minute, hit that subscribe button, smash the like and the notification, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, and please let that commercial play. You dig? Let me back it up now, man, and let's get started with this and let's break it down. You dig? Let's go.
We heard from the minister of DRC. What's wrong with your country? Well, we don't even start by saying the King of Belgium created a slave colony for 30 years.
True.
The government of Belgium ran the slave colony for another 40 years.
See, people seem to forget real quick that the King of Belgium was one of the baddest genocidal person. So the state of Belgium today has a whole lot of blood. Not just blood, man. You guys got so much blood in your hands that is still continuing to today. It's a very sad situation. And to hear an economist, a white person, to be very honest and frank about this shit like this, it's crazy.
The CIA assassinated your first popular leader, Mr. Lumumba.
Did you guys know that Patrice Lumumba was assassinated with the help of the CIA? Motherland. Did you know? So they created a colony, 30 years. They ran it 30 years. Slavery in that colony for 30 years. They ran it for another 40 years. That's 70 years. And then with the help of the CIA, because whites always like to work together to screw African up. Yes. When one white Western country is being hurt in Africa, they call their buddies. Let's go fuck them up. Look at what, do you know Abyssinia, Ethiopia today whooped the shit out of Mussolini's ass? Talk about the Italians. But guess what they did? Of course, it went back and, bundled up with the and everything. And, it's crazy, but that's the reality. You dig? Let's go, man.
Food system. It's based on large multinational companies. It's based on private profits. It's based on a very, very low measure of international transfers to help poor people.
There's nothing that is out to help the poor countries. We are in the pandemic. There are countries on earth that still haven't received vaccines yet. Did you know that?
Sometimes none at all. It's based on extreme irresponsibility of powerful countries with regard to the environment. And it's based on a radical denial of rights of poor people, as we just heard.
A radical denial of rights of poor people. Extreme irresponsibilities to environmental things when it comes to, who do you think suffers most from this climate change? Poor countries. Rich countries have the resources. If there is a flood, they have resources. If there is an earthquake, they have the resources. Look at what just happened in Haiti. I'm not saying that it was caused by another country, but I'm just saying they could care less about the poorer countries as long as they can reap what they're ripping from the poorer country resources and they're making money off it. Fuck them.
It's interesting. We heard from the minister of DRC. What's wrong with your country? Well, we don't even start by saying The King of Belgium created a slave colony for 30 years. The government of Belgium ran the slave colony for another 40 years. The CIA assassinated your first popular leader, Mr. Lumumba, and then installed another dictatorship for the next 30 years.
Yo, let me tell you something. Do you know that Nelson Mandela during the apartheid was captured with the help of the CIA? Man, we gotta open our eyes, man. Shine your eyes. You dig? There's a whole lot of, man.
And then Glencore and others now suck out your cobalt without giving you tax income. We don't reflect on that. We say, what's wrong with you? Why don't you govern properly?
Everything is always blaming the Africans. You dig? Yes. Anything wrong in Africa? Oh, the Africans. Of course, that bastard, what's his name, man? He called them the S word, shithole countries. It's always about why don't you govern? Who is, ladies and gentlemen, when we look at Africa today, the political elites, who supports them? Who lets them take money and store in foreign countries? And if these Swiss banks should expose the details of their African clients, of the kleptomania of all these African elites, it's going to be crazy. But no, you're not going to talk about it. Why don't you govern?
And so we have a system, but we need a different system. We cannot turn this over to the private sector. We already did about 100 years ago.
True.
Not only to the private sector with the U.S. military behind it.
You guys paying attention? France left the Sahel region. The military 7-year deal got expired. They've robbed and stolen all the necessary gold, whatever came from it already, and they're leaving. Now guess who's gonna come in? Of course, America's gonna come in. You already have private military defense companies in Africa. They are already in Africa. If you didn't know that, pay attention. Central Africa, they are. Pay attention. You did? We are like, man, we are screwed big time, y'all.
With the defense of these property rights in the minister of Honduras's country, where United Fruit ran the country for a long time. And their attorney was the foreign minister of the United States, Secretary Dulles, and his brother was the head of the CIA and overthrew the next door neighbor, Mr. Arbenz, to make sure that United Fruit could have its property.
You paying attention? You see how they click? It's a click, man. They are goons. The political elites around, they are goons. If not of Trump, who exposed the nonsense, the mess that is happening in America with the Republican Party today, the most corrupt white-owned party in the globe. Yes, it is the most corrupt. It is the most, how can I say it? The light, I like to breathe. It's crazy. It is crazy.
So we have a system, but we need a different system. And the different system has to be based on principles of human dignity in the Universal Declaration, principles of sovereignty, principles of economic rights, because these are not nice things to do. In 1948, all the government said that food is a right, social protection is a right, not a nice thing, not a pleasant thing.
Do you think they're gonna pay attention to this? This man, I hope they don't take him out, but to come out and say this in this kind of a summit, ladies and gentlemen, he is seen, but nobody's gonna talk about things like this. They're not gonna bring him on CNN, on BBC, round the clock. They're not, none of that. They don't want people like this to be saying this stuff. It's gonna end on the internet. That's where it ends, the internet. But see, this lying house, Fox News is not going to put him on it. CNN, now. Al Jazeera, now. Because they don't want the masses to know. It's crazy.
Right. That was 73 years ago. The SDGs are nothing more than our generation's attempt to honor the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I come from a country that not only doesn't care about the world's poor, it doesn't even care about its own poor.
Facts.
1 in 7 Americans is hungry right now.
Did you know that? See, people stay. Yes, I have free access to America whenever I want to. You dig? I live there. You dig? I grew up most of my adolescence life in America. I do not like America like that. I am not crazy about living in America anyways. You dig? If I had a way of building up a system somewhere in Motherland, I would be in Motherland. And I'm working towards that. Did you know that there are hungry people in America? Some of you will say, oh, because they're lazy and this. Nah. It's not everybody who goes hungry in America is lazy. It's not everybody who sleeps in the streets in America is lazy. You dig? Let's not get into the racist stuff. Let's not do that. But he's saying the truth.
And they don't care. I mean, the poor people care, but one political party, all it cares about is cutting taxes for the rich and filibustering any solution. So we're in a world that's really tough.
And that party is the Republican Party. That's all they do. Just cut taxes for the rich because the rich, they lobby and they pay them. It's just all about that. Jeff Bezos say he's willing to pay. But guess what? They're going to filibuster that shit. They don't want that. You dig? Because their clients, their buddies, their friends. I'm talking about the big defense company, the big infrastructure contracting company, they are all under the Republican political parties. So they want to make sure that, whatever it is, they maintain the status quo. There has to be a shift. I'm talking about a disruptive shift. You dig?
The private sector is not going to solve this problem. I'm sorry to say to all of the private sector leaders, behave, pay your taxes, follow the rules. That's what you should do.
But they don't. Behave, follow the rules, but the richer don't want to pay taxes. Why do you think Trump is not willing to let go of to show the world? But it's going to come out eventually. And we're going to see, no matter how long it takes, we're going to see it. And you guys going to understand why the Republicans are standing and kissing his ass. You dig? It's crazy.
And what the government should do is the following. They won't, but they should.
I like this. They won't, but they should do. Proposal. But nobody gives a damn.
First, the G20 should become the G21 by inviting systemically the chairperson of the African Union and the African Union to be the 21st country.
Ladies and gentlemen, you see this statement? 6 years ago, we had a debate, me and some buddies. You dig? I'm talking about some professors. And I asked this same question. Why isn't there an entity representing Africa in the G? Why? Oh, they say no, they're the stronger than the most, Now, but how do you make decision about a people and they have no representation? How? It's like being sentenced to jail in absentia, like without you being caught. You don't even have the right to, It's crazy, man.
The European Union is a member of the G20 as the EU. If you add the AU as the 21st for the G21, you add 1.4 billion people to representation at that.
They knew these things, man. They knew. AU doesn't have, but they have EU. They have the United, they have everything represented, but except the AU. See, I'm getting super pissed off because these are things that we have known. At least some of us Africans that we can read it between the lines, we've known this shit. We've asked this question over and over. But they don't care. And now they're going to look for somebody that they can corrupt and put in there. You watch and see.
Crucial event. That will change decisively the discussion, because 1.4 billion people are not at the table for finance right now.
Facts.
And they need to be. So my first recommendation is the G21. I love the G20. Add one seat. 1.4 billion people with the AU represented.
Do you think they're gonna add that? Nah. It's gonna take a long time. Because they know exactly what they're doing.
Second, we need a order of magnitude change of development finance. The rich countries just borrowed $17 trillion for COVID. The poor countries, nothing.
Damn.
Because the rich countries can borrow at 0, and the poor countries pay 5 or 10% coupon rates or have no access at all.
$17 trillion they can borrow from the International Monetary Fund. They can. But the Africans, the poor countries, they cannot. And you guys tell me that there's like there's equality in life? Nah. Africa, we need to stand up, man. Poor country, we need to decide for ourselves. I mean, when he talks about poor countries, not just Africa, but majorities in Africa. We need to, man. Come on, man.
So the world exposed its grotesque inequality this past year and a half. Rich countries didn't say, we tighten our belts, why don't you? My country spent $7 trillion of emergency funding, not one penny for anybody else, by the way. $7 trillion. It didn't even cross the imagination of the U.S. Congress to include a few crumbs for the rest of the world. But the poor countries cannot borrow. That's what we should have heard from the World Bank. I didn't hear that from the World Bank.
Because the World Bank is a sham. The World Bank is a piece of shit organization just to screw the poor countries. They want to maintain those countries being poor.
I didn't hear real numbers. Real numbers are in trillions right now because the world economy is $100 trillion a year. But we don't talk about real numbers. But my job, all I know in this world is long division. Divide by 100 trillion and then see whether you're talking about something real or not.
Facts.
So that's the second thing. We need massively to increase the lending and borrowing capacity of poor countries at near zero interest rates like the rich countries have. Then they could get something done.
Facts. If you have all of these things working against Africa, why would people try to have an opinion about what is happening in Africa? Well, you put them in that situation. It's, man, see, any African in the diaspora, please go home and invest. Buy a piece of land, start any farming thing. Akon told y'all, go home. We need that. Dig, just go home.
By the way, for COVID vaccines, what we really need is for the United States to sit down with China, with Russia, with the European Union and the UK one day around the table and allocate these vaccines rather than hoarding them.
Facts.
That's all it would take. And then we're going to have national pathways. This is a wonderful idea, but they're going to need financing. And so everything that I've been saying, I know the numbers. That's all I do for 40 years is add up what's missing. You want electricity? It has to be purchased. You want digital access? It has to be purchased. You want safe water irrigation? It has to be purchased.
We can generate our own electricity in Africa. Go to the Sahara Desert. Make it a solar panel plantation. We power the whole of the continent. And we kick out all these foreign American Electric Society, the AES. We kick them out. You dig? Come on, man.
This is what I do for a living, is add up these numbers and then find out that then somebody makes up something and names 1/100th of what's really needed. It's not even hard. By the way, the IMF has done wonderful studies in the last 2 years showing that we have a financing gap of about $400 to $500 billion a year for the basics for the SDGs. They show the gap, but nobody comes up with the number, the solution, which wouldn't be so hard because that's just not a big number. It's 0.5 of 1% of world output.
Facts.
So if we really care, we wouldn't have the G7 saying, we love education, therefore we're going to give $3 billion for education. That's what they said at the summit. But what UNESCO has shown is that you need at least $30 billion a year.
So if you need 30 billion to educate every child in Africa, why are you giving 3 billion? What is the essence? What about 27 billion? Who's going to raise the 27 billion? Because they don't want to. They want, come on now.
Minimum. But nobody looks at numbers. They just make up nice check the box. So we need the real numbers of finance to back the national pathways. The final thing is, we need the UN as the core and central institution of this world, period.
The UN ain't shit. It's just cliques, man. Homies. Goons, man. We want this, we gather, we vote, we go. Veto power, it doesn't matter if China or Russia doesn't say we go in. Of course, when the country gives or provides 75% of the budget, the running budget of an organization, of course, they have the power over it.
Because this is the only way we're going to have a civilized world, is a strong UN. And it cannot be that the whole UN budget is less than my neighborhood's budget in New York.
Damn.
The UN core budget this year is $3 billion. New York City's budget is $100 billion.
Damn.
And then we say, why don't things work well? Because the rich are hoarding everything. Final point, rather than our 3 billionaires going in space, well, they could go into space and stay there and leave their money behind. That would be one idea.
Damn. Something pissed this man off. Something has really pissed this man off to say that. You dig? I asked myself the same question. Why they go into space? Why is it even on TV? What importance is that shit?
But another idea is we have 2,775 billionaires on the current list. Their combined net worth, 2,700, is $13.1 trillion. Now, I have it on good authority. You don't need more than $1 billion to be comfortable.
Facts.
But they have an excess of $11 trillion over just the $1 billion. So we should be taxing that and having a civilized world.
Nobody wants to tax it because they got politics and lobbying for them. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a long take, but it is very important. What he said is the fact about the inequality in every state. Unless, see, these are scholars, man. These are the people that don't get into politics. Why won't you tax a billionaire? Why would a billionaire, just because he's affiliated to the Republican Party, not pay taxes? Man, I'm sorry I'm raising my voice, but anything that touches Africa, anything that makes the West maltreat Africa, it kills me to the core. You guys ain't got a clue. It pisses me off. It might be because of my background of political science education. I don't know, but it just... And then they have the guts to sit there and say, you guys are a poor country. I'm out of here, man. Let's just leave it at that. Share this ish. Watch. Leave a comment. Let's talk about this. Peace.
Action God. Big up the RB family. Mr. Misterjaay, I see you. I know some artists don't do this. God